Good day and welcome to today's edition of the African Student Voices, the show that brings you the contribution of students to the development of higher education on the face of the continent. Today, we will be looking at formation of anti-drug clubs on African universities. And with me to look deep into these issues are Mr. Ibrahimah Seidu, a student of the University of Professional Studies, Dr. Dansuah Nuamah of the Pantang Hospital, and Mr. Roger Abaah Atambire, the Executive Director of Life Out of Alcohol and Drugs. You're welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
I'll start first with you, Dr. Nuamah. When we talk about drugs, what readily comes into mind?
Okay. So, when we talk about drugs, the word itself doesn't necessarily have any negative connotation. A drug is basically a substance that is taken in or may be applied by other routes, for example, topical, inhaled as well. That is used to kind of alter the body's system in one form or another. So basically that is a drug. But then I think in this context, what we are trying to look at is the kind of drugs that our user give negative connotation. Mind you, there are medical medications that we give out that we also use the term drug for. So normal medications we prescribe for different conditions are drugs as well. But then when we talk about drugs of illicit use, and what we often use and term as substance use disorders, we are looking at substances that are ingested or taken in by various modalities that tend to give a negative outcome to the person. Mind you, these also tend to have an addictive component such that when the person starts taking it, it alters the person's mechanism such that it makes the person crave to use more of it, so that there's a continuous desire to reuse the substance till it gets to an extent that the person becomes a bit dependent on it, such that without that substance in the person's system, the person is unable to function optimally. And then later on progresses to an extent that the person's whole life circles around how to obtain the substance and how to use the substance, basically.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Atambire, you are working with persons who are struggling to get out of drugs.
Yes.
Or persons who are into drugs and you're trying to get them out of it. In your NGO, the term drug, what does it connote to you?
I thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I am not only working with people that are struggling with drugs. I struggle with drugs myself.
Okay.
I used alcohol and I experimented with marijuana as well.
Okay.
I'm in senior high school. Okay. And I got addicted and got to a stage that I needed help. Okay. I didn't even know that I needed help. The first problem with drug addicts are denial and even knowing that they have a problem. And they tend to think that it's a different thing altogether, not the drug that they are using or whatever that, I mean. So I finally had to seek for professional support or help, and eventually got to Accra Psychiatric Hospital. I visited Pantang, I visited Accra Psychiatric Hospital, where I worked. I was diagnosed with insomnia, sleepless night. Okay. It's caused by drug usage, and I eventually did a rehabilitation in Accra Psychiatric Hospital, 6 months intensive rehabilitation. Came out and founded Load Ghana. So I'm not only a person trying helping people out of it, but I struggle with drugs as myself as well. Okay. And then came out of it and realized that I need to give back to society. It's something that we do it out of ignorance. A lot of people that are into drugs is out of ignorance. We don't have good information out there for the students or for people to even know that this thing that I'm going to experiment, it will lead me to recreational, to other stages, to the addictive stage that I cannot do without the drug. So I've been there, came out, and I'm also helping people that are struggling with it. When you talk about drugs in Africa or in Ghana, you're talking about the ones that we abuse, talking of the stimulants, we're talking of the depressants, the marijuana, alcohol, tramadol of late, the cocaine. So that is what we know as drug in our sector. Okay. And those of us that want to feel high, those of us that want to build our confidence. People have all sort of reasons why they use drugs, but I always say that it's just ignorance. If you know what it's going to do to you in the long run, you would not even go into it. So in our setting or sector, or our understanding of drug is the ones that we abuse. That is drug. Yeah.
Ibrahimah, you are a third-year student. The issue of substance abuse largely affects students, especially the youth, because this is the stages where young people want to experiment whatever they see or hear. Have you used drugs yourself before?
Well, I've used drugs before, but not the negative aspect. Actually, not to an extent of abusing it. No, for medicinal purposes. Probably a doctor prescribing a particular drug to me, then I go take it, then it helps myself. I think that's just where I've found comfort in using drugs, but not the other side of abusing it.
Okay, in the context of what we are discussing today, we're looking at those that influence us negatively. You haven't, but do you know of your colleagues at the university, either in your university or other universities, that have used these drugs?
Yes, actually in my university I've known quite a number of people intensely using drugs, and then in other universities too, I know of mates and other colleagues who are using drugs as well. And it's my prayer that we come up as youth and then speak tirelessly against it, and that the use of drugs and then substance abuse is something that is bad and must be stopped.
All right, I'll come back to you. But Doc, what exactly, you have been dealing with patients of this nature, people who have used drugs and it's now become addictive and trying to get out of it. What majorly are the causes of the drug abuse? Okay,
so well, I guess with most things in this world, there's never really one thing that would be a cause. It's often varying. And for persons who are usually within the youthful period, one of the things is peer pressure, peer influence. It's quite common that people will tell you that, and often people start in groups. So usually it will be introduced by a friend who is often using it, and then sometimes in a group whilst using, they may just pass it on to your kind of influence you to try it as well and give you all the positive things it will probably do. So that's one of the main sources of influence for people getting into drug use. Then again, there's also the issue about stress. So there may be stress of different sources, of different types. When people feel inadequate to cope with stress, oftentimes people try different things to try and either numb the pain they are experiencing so that temporarily you don't kind of experience that pain, or you're having a relief from whatever issue it is. So a common thing is alcohol. Most people tend to find solace in alcohol, and that's how some people tend to start abusing the substance. Then again, there's other factors like some people may start using some medications for medical purposes. So an example is something like tramadol, or some of the painkillers, pethidine. So a doctor may prescribe it as part of a treatment regimen, trying to get someone, for example, who has, say, sickle cell disease disorder, who is in pain oftentimes. So once the person starts it, sometimes because of that component of getting relief from it, and it's having some form of, I would say, addictive component, persons may continue using it outside of the prescribed environment, such that when the medication has even been discontinued by the person who prescribed it, the person will continue using it. So on the whole, these are some of the common reasons why people get involved in using substances.
Okay. So Roger, you have you've used a number of the substances, and thankfully you've been able to get out of it, and you are also helping others to get out of it. In your particular case, what were the reasons? Why did you get into alcohol, marijuana, and other substances that you told us you were into?
Doc have mentioned almost most of the major causes of it, but I still believe that it's ignorance. Okay. Ignorance, fueled by music, fueled by advertisement, if you like, and also acceptance. When you are growing, it gets to a stage that you want acceptance from your peers. and immediately you get to senior high school. In my case, when I got to senior high school, those that used to go out to drink Pito and come back were the coolest guys. And when we have entertainments, those were the guys that people look up to, expecting things from them, that they will come and make the place hot. And they come later, and everybody love them. When we have school sport activities, they come and they make the jama, and people love them. And you also expect that you wanted to.
For the benefit of our viewers, jama basically means drumming and dancing.
Drumming and dancing.
Okay.
When they student sporting activities, and you support your inter houses, inter schools, and the people that come to support the athletes or the sportsmen and women, and you want to be part of the guys that have confidence to walk from one end, from the dining hall to the other end. And these guys are people that normally drink Pito, use mashed fermented kenke, and yet to get high, and other drugs that we do. There was this leaf that we used to chew as well, and I think it's not common these days. One of our colleagues chewed that leaf, and nearly went mad that night. we didn't know what to tell the housemaster. So some of us wanted to be accepted, some of us wanted to do things, some of us wanted to gather courage to be able to talk to other, girls. So I got attracted on a safe match day. After the activities, we normally do come back for afternoon entertainment or afternoon jump. And we felt that we needed to do Pito. So I'll be able to. So
Pito is a locally brewed alcoholic beverage.
Yes.
Is that the case?
So back at the north, that is always a foundation, and it's part of our culture. They use it for marital activities. They use it for funeral activities, and we seem to think that it is normal. It is accepted, and we normally start from the Pito. But with drugs, when you start with a milder one, it gets to a stage that with the tolerance effect, doctor can explain that further. The body accepts it to the extent that what the quantity that you are using, when you use that, you don't get the high again. You need to increase the dosage. And we normally graduate from the milder alcoholic beverage to the harder ones, the liquor, or the spirit, if like. It gets to the stage that even any alcoholic beverage alone cannot give you a high. You need to top it with cigarette and do other things to be able to get the high. That is when the body begins to tolerate the substance that they are using. So, but in my case, it was ignorance, and I still believe it is ignorance that attracts a lot of, or allow people to use drugs. For instance, if you are a student like Ibrahim, and you know so much about yourself, know so much about drugs, and you believe in yourself and know your future, your vision, I don't think somebody will be able to deceive you to use drugs to be accepted by them. So it's just ignorance. And my platforms that I go around senior high schools and universities, people get to tell you that they didn't know what you are telling them. So we need to give out information to the students. We need to empower them. We need to let them know that they are playing with fire. And at the end of it all, your vision would be ruined, and you cannot even complete your university and come out to be a productive person. Yeah.
Ibrahim, are there peer educators in your university, people talking to students about the consequences of drugs?
Well, the aspect of peer educators is really seen on campus, because actually you scarcely see a colleague or a mate going to other colleagues talking to them about the negative influence of drugs. And then this usually happens because the person who is going to talk to them feels that, oh, if I move to this particular friend of mine to talk to him about the abuse of drugs, maybe he might not listen to me, he might not buy into that. He might say, oh, probably that's what we've been doing, and then we'll found comfort in it for so long a time. And when, quite interesting is that when you move to them and then you talk to them about it, what they say is, actually when I take it, it boosts my morale, and then I can study more, which is actually not the case. And so we actually find it very difficult to do that, but I'm very much optimistic that as time goes on, people will get to realize that the use of drugs is something that is bad, and then when people come around to talk about the negative impact of drugs to them, they would be ready to pay give out a listening ear and heed to whatever.
On that note, I'm going to come back to you, but we'll have to go for a little break, And when we come back, we'll continue the discussion on drugs and how to create awareness on African university campuses.
Come November 12 to 17, 2018, the African Universities Week, which is celebrated in the month of November, will be marked all over the continent. The Association of African Universities calls on all its member institutions and other higher education institutions across Africa to celebrate this year's event under the theme, The Africa We Want, the Role of Young People. The event in Ghana will be hosted by the Association of African Universities
and will have as guests a 21-member delegation from Sudanese universities comprising of over 12 vice-chancellors and other delegates.
The Honorable Minister of Education in charge of tertiary education, the Executive Secretary of the National Council of Tertiary Education, vice-chancellors, presidents and rectors of Ghanaian universities. Join us at the AAU Secretariat from Monday 12 November to Saturday 17th November as we celebrate the various activities of the African Universities Week calendar, including high-profile panel discussions, live TV studio discussions, photo sessions, African cultural events, science, technology and innovation markets, and many, many more. Registration is free and attendance is open to people from all walks of life. Call us on +233 54 772 8975. Email us on info@aau.org. This program is brought to you kind courtesy of the Association of African Universities in collaboration with Airport West Hotel Limited, Accra.
Welcome back to African Student Voices, the show that brings you the contribution of students on this continent to the improvement of higher education on the face of the continent. Today we are discussing formation of anti-drug clubs on African university campuses and how it can be a tool to achieving the continental education strategy for Africa. So, Doc, what are some of the effects of drug abuse, especially on students?
So drug abuse has very far-reaching effects. Let's start off with the person, body. Okay, so there's a lot of physical effects on the individual, and this varies with the substance that's being used. And I may pick on alcohol a bit more because it's pervasive. Most people tend to use it quite a lot. It's the commonest substance that is abused. And with something like alcohol, it affects everything from the crown of your head to the sole of your foot. From brain, eye, mouth, through your stomach, causing ulcers. I mean, the medical conditions that can arise out of alcohol abuse are just extensive. To the extent that the worst case scenario, we are talking about liver disorders to even cancers that are coming out from the liver. So these are and that's not just with alcohol alone, with other substances that are used as well. Even with tramadol that we've been speaking of quite highly of late, I think with the expose that came up, we could realize that it was causing things like seizures amongst individuals, apart from other physical conditions. So physical well-being is affected. Then again, you talk about, mind you, persons who use these substances live in a society and from a family and in a community. So it can even be the schooling environment. Now, by using these substances, you tend to end up disrupting that social cycle, how you even relate with other persons. So oftentimes you have persons often becoming delinquent because, mind you, you would need to finance the use of these substances. And it's such that when you start abusing it, as I mentioned earlier on, it begins to affect the level of functioning. So that you're not as functional as you would want to be or you should be, meaning that's going to probably impact how you even get funding or your source of income. Meanwhile, you have to spend on these substances, and most are not cheap. So if you're talking about high-end like cocaine and others, then that is quite expensive. But then even with alcohol, you still have to buy, even if it's pito or akpatashi, which are locally brewed substances, you still have to buy them. So people oftentimes will end up pilfering or doing other things that are not right just to be able to fund this. So with that, oftentimes you have students getting in conflict with authorities, because you're often found doing something that is just not right. Then again, social circles, you start having family conflicts. So people who are close to you, parents, siblings, will notice that there's this change that is just not right, and it will start bringing a lot of conflicts in the person's immediate circle. Okay, so these are common things that tend to run. These are the common ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Roger, you have something to add?
Yes, Doc is speaking as an expert, and I love that. I used alcohol to a stage that I was declared a chronic addict. From experience, I had a fatty liver, or a large liver. It's not something that I read. We got to alcohol, and some of the things that I need to do is to check your organs, to know the states of your organs, to help you physically as well, to restore them. So one day we went to the Cape Coast Central Hospital. I went with one of the nurses. I don't want to mention her name. But we're chatting, and when we got there, we were lovely. We'll come back. She was not happy again. And I asked her what was going on, and she was like, wow. She didn't want to disclose the results. Okay. And I think 2 or a day later, Dr. Seidu, a clinical psychologist who was supervising my rehabilitation program, told me I have a liver problem and I needed to be on drugs to restore it back to its normal stage. Apart from the liver, I think this is we need to educate the viewers, people watching us. As a man or a male person, it gets to, we start by saying that one aphrodisiac to able to perform or to impress a lady. Okay. The long round effect is just the way that you will not even get erection, not to talk of penetration. Okay. A lot of families are struggling, male guys are struggling, they cannot even get erection. Okay. Alcohol is such a way that it gets to a stage that it affects your function as a man. And apart from that, the physical parts are always serious. I had swollen feet, could not even put use my shoes. Traveled to Nigeria for a program. I had to go to a program with slippers, bathroom slippers. You could not. Yes, the feet were swollen. That I couldn't use them. And then talking about people around you that is serious, you tend to be a nuisance to virtually everyone, especially when you have a wife. You come home late and you imagine the stench, and sometimes you want to kiss your wife or want to do something. The woman, I remember one time I walked from Circle to Medina, those who know Accra very well, just to keep my money to finance or to drink on the way going home. Around Paloma, walked to Medina, got to Medina the next morning. I imagined having a wife. And when she opened, I knocked and she opened, tears came down uncontrollably. Your children, and even my firstborn is a lady, and anytime, she was just a very active, outgoing lady, but because of my activities, anytime that I'm being carried home drunk, I wrote up Papa book, it's something like that, and yes, it affected her, and when I came out and she came back, your children tend to just avoid you, and the little money that you have, you want to use that money to buy your alcohol and other drink, than to pay school fees, than to put money, food on the table. And even people trying to help you. My father and aunties and sisters that wanted to help me, some of them got fed up. They'll take you to prayer camp, they want to take you to a place, and you fight with virtually everyone around you. Coming back to education, I was in the University of Professional Studies, and deferred my course 3 times. The third one on medical, accepted on them, yes. I only had to defer twice, but the third one was accepted on medical grounds to pave way for me to go to Accra for my rehabilitation. I came back and my colleagues completed, some of them were doing their masters. I didn't even have a group to complete my project work. Just look at that. So it's something that affects you, everyone around you, your future, and you need to just. But when you begin, people don't tell you all this. They will never tell you the truth. Okay. All the peers tell you is the enjoyment, the pleasures that you get. They will never let you know, or you wouldn't even know. Sometimes you think that it happened to Roger, but it can never happen to me. With alcohol and every drug, whatever, when you start using it, you progress. It's a progressive ailment. You would get to that stage that you can't control your intake. So the effects are just you can't mention them.
If I may just add quickly, just with all these components, and the vital part is also the psychological aspect as well. You cannot go around it. And, well, oftentimes we tend to say, when people are psychotic or start behaving unusually or in a manner that is not befitting, oftentimes people start saying that the person has started smoking something. And it's not really, that may not always be the case, but then it's not unfounded. Oftentimes you could have psychological manifestations and complications from abuse of these substances as well. So some people may even be predisposed to having these conditions, and by just using the substance, you may end up triggering it to actually fully manifest. And then also there's also the substance-induced psychotic disorders, where because of the intoxication or withdrawals from these substances, you may end up having these psychotic manifestations as well.
Brian, do you see some signs, like your colleagues or student groups that get involved in alcoholism, in smoking of Indian hemp and all of the substances? Do you see some features that are weird or not right or not just like any ordinary student?
Yes, actually yes. Those particular features are not predominant amongst most of them, because usually what they do is they fall onto drugs and then other alcoholic beverages just once in a while. And so at that particular instance that maybe once he's done consuming it, you see it. You see that, yes, in fact, this guy has really taken something. It's not acting well. And that particular thing is not actually reluring, as Mr. Akon said. If you take that and then you come to my room, you come to the hostel needing something from me, probably I may not even want to look at you, talk less of giving you that particular thing that you need. And so there is the need for we, the youth, to actually put that aside and not to take drugs, not to fall on substance abuse. That is really bad. If you take a critical look at the 2063 African Agenda document, that there are a number of policies that the African continent seek to achieve on before the year 2063.
That's Agenda 2063.
Yes, Agenda 2063. Actually, this particular document, much of its works lies within the youth. And if the youth are going to be falling on drugs, then what future do we have as a continent? And so maybe we may want to take another look at it and not to fall on drugs. Not to say that if you think that you are going to study and then probably you have to take something before you do it. It doesn't work at all. Madam is here, she's a psychiatric doctor. I think she would elaborate more on it. I don't think it is consistent with you taking drugs. Your level of absorption, or probably your level of memorizing, and then you taking drugs, I don't think it's consistent with each other. No, I don't think at all.
Yes. Yes, Ibrahim talked about the youth, and as if they need to do things or let things work on their own. If you look at senior high schools in the Upper East region, just right in front of the school is a drinking spot. The actors, I mean the stakeholders, the authorities need to also do something. We need to protect them. We need to create a platform for them to even get people like Doctor and myself to educate them. If those platforms are not there, how are they going to get the information? Some of us are willing to go around the whole country, talk to students. You get to certain schools and they tell you that...
Why are you limiting it to country? You don't think it's a continental...
It's a continental problem. But because I've been working here for the past 4 years, I know the problem we have here, especially the northern part of it. Look at the siting of drinking spots closer to schools. And elsewhere, I was reading about alcohol policy in America, and they even have college policies that you can't cite a drinking spot closer to a college.
So you think governmental legislation should be...
Yes, that even the students come out and see their mentors, their teachers, with a bottle in front of them. What is the message you are sending to the students? We need to do something. And whatever the child see, we learn from what we hear, what we see, and what we read. So especially from our mentors. When you see your father, your uncle drinking a chill beer, the information is that it is good. When I have the opportunity, I will drink. So we need to look at the siting of drinking spots closer to schools. We need to create platforms, even make it part of most of the subjects that, I mean, if you want an examinable subject that we will bring recovering addicts that are ready to share their experience. Anytime that you go to school, and any school, whether being a senior high, junior high, the university, the students want to talk to you. Okay. They know this person have been there. I've been to the University of Professional Studies twice. This year I was there from 4th to 8th October during the orientation. Okay. I've been to Wisconsin International College, a lot of universities, and the people will call you later and tell you the problem that they're struggling with. I mean, so we need the platforms to get out there to educate the students.
Okay, so Doc, there is this notion that students perform very well when they take in substances. It can be cannabis, it can be alcohol, it can be cigarettes. There's just this general notion, and that it's not only a Ghanaian thing, it is across the continent. I've been privileged to superintend over the activities of all of the students on the continent for 4 years, and I've traveled extensively. And all of the stakeholders I meet with see this as one of the causes of drug abuse. What do you think? What exactly is it that makes students think that when they drink alcohol or when they smoke cigarette or Indian hemp, it enhances their understanding?
Okay, that is very true. It's quite a perception that is held by most people, and oftentimes a reason for people to even get involved with substances in the first place. Mind you, as he was speaking earlier on, he made mention of some stimulants and depression. Okay, and the thing is that with these substances, oftentimes when you start taking it, there's based on how they act in their mechanism of action, there's some level of increase in arousal. Okay, so that you're kind of stimulated, you're kind of a bit more energized. So for example, the youth who were using tramadol will say that they could perform activities for longer period of time without getting tired. So a driver will say, I can drive long distances and I don't even feel sleepy. And for students, translating that to a student's life, then it's going to say, I can be awake throughout the night without feeling sleepy, and to them, I am studying. Okay, so they're equating being awake or having a heightened sense of arousal to increase performance. But the thing is that after that, there's also the depressive aspect. And mind you, during these periods as well, it doesn't necessarily translate into effective learning or effective periods of doing anything, actually. So though you may be awake and alert, you may not necessarily be as alert as you think or you presume you are. So though it just changes the body's mechanism or the brain's mechanism of doing things, so that you are awake, but then you are not fully alert, so that you are not deriving the optimum benefits. And mind you, God created our bodies in a particular way, and we function in a particular way, such that the body has a period it has to be awake and a time to rest and take stock, so that during that time it's revitalizing itself, rejuvenating itself, cells are building and multiplying. But if you start twisting and manipulating this rhythm, then you can't expect a good outcome to come out of it. So oftentimes people would abuse it. You will be awake, all right, but then the grades will come and it wouldn't be as great as you want, because you probably not have retained what you even thought you had retained. And you get to the exam room and there it will be telling on you because you are not well rested, you can't even recollect properly and all of that. So it's not a well-founded argument. But then again, people tend to say that a lot to influence others to join them, because by that point they are addicted and they need someone to join in with them. So you start saying all kinds of things just to get another person to join you rather than to dissuade you from getting off of it.
Okay, any of us can respond to this. Do we think that legislations should be made in our university settings against the use of alcohol? Because within the African setting, one of the most affordable drug is alcohol. Convenience to get is alcohol, because anywhere at all, it's not like Indian hemp where you can smoke it on the streets. Of all of the what we call joints or blue kiosk in Ghana, where they sell little pubs where alcohols are affordable, in some university environs, you have drinking bars or beer parlors or places you can buy alcohol. Do you think it is time to get legislations in institutions of higher learning in Africa to curb the issue of drugs, especially alcoholism, in African university campuses? You first.
Yes, I think that is very necessary. The law that I know about this particular, concerning this particular topic, is the PNDC law passed in the 1990. That's the law 236.
Okay.
That birthed this Narcotics Control Board, and so I think it is on the onus of the Narcotics Control Board to take a very critical look at these things and to curb it and to make sure that the predominance of these drugs and their substances aren't on campuses, most especially the tertiary level, and then other levels that have been there for the tertiary level. Actually, there is this particular thing that happens in a whole lot of universities that I do not much buy into. That is during the SLC week celebrations or Hall week celebrations or probably any other program, you get to realize that these pitos and other things are being sold at the premises.
That is locally brewed beer.
Yes, locally brewed beer. The pito are sold there, and I think it's not the best, and it's not something that we should be practicing. So the SLCs all over the continent, student leaders, we should make sure that once we can party, and not necessarily bringing those things on board. We can party without taking alcohol. We can party without taking tramadol. And then the Ghana News Agency in 2017, that was just last year, on the 30th of November, they made an introspection on this thing in the Upper West region. And they came out with a report. And the report sought to say that 70% of the youth in that particular region resort to drugs. And then what they usually do is that they buy the tramadol or the codeine and they pour it into these highly concentrated drinks. And then they mix it and take it into their system.
They call it tramadol bitters.
which I believe is entirely bad for the human body and should not be practiced. So I think that it is high time we all come around and then say a big no to this otherwise repugnant practice.
So you are an advocate for higher educational institutions to come out with bylaws within campuses prohibiting the use of
substance abuse,
especially alcohol.
Exactly.
Doc, what do you think?
I think it's a very dicey issue.
Okay.
I think it's not as simple as just prohibiting its use on campus. My reason for this is putting everything into perspective. Oftentimes, people who are in higher institutions or tertiary institutions are over 18.
Okay.
So whatever law you're going to put in their policy, first of all, it must stem from the national policy. And the big question has always been, how come alcohol is not banned or prohibited in the country? And that has been an ongoing debate. I don't think we can even get a resolution to that now. Now, the aim for me, I think, is to get our students to come to an understanding of not wanting to use it even if it's available. Okay. Because for something like cannabis, which we know there's no law backing its recreational use, even with that if it's found on you just possessing of it without documentation to that effect, you can be prosecuted. We have pervasive use of it that it's now, out of hand. So having that law in particular may not necessarily be all-inclusive, may not necessarily be the solution to the problem. I'm thinking a more comprehensive look can be given to it. Maybe that may be a component if it's necessary, but then I think it has to be much more in-depth than just banning it completely, because that doesn't seem to have worked with other substances. And oftentimes when, I don't know, with the youth as well, when something, you say don't go here, that's where it's like a red flag, like, oh, go there, go there, go there, because they go like, what is it about it? You know, you create something
like
exactly. So everyone wants to see exactly. Okay. But I think education is key. Trying to send the message across that.
Okay, Doc. So on the basis of education, viewers, we're taking a short break, and when we return, we'll look at how to form anti-drug clubs on African university campuses.
Come November 12 to 17, 2018, the African Universities Week, which is celebrated in the month of November, will be marked all over the continent. The Association of African Universities calls on all its member institutions and other higher education institutions across Africa to celebrate this year's events under the theme, The Africa We Want, the Role of Young People. The event in Ghana
will be hosted by the Association of African Universities and will have as guests a 21-member delegation from Sudanese universities comprising of over 12 vice-chancellors and other delegates.
The Honorable Minister of Education in charge of tertiary education, the Executive Secretary of the National Council of Tertiary Education, Vice-Chancellors, Presidents and Rectors of Ghanaian universities. Join us at the AAU Secretariat from Monday 12 November to Saturday 17th November as we celebrate the various activities of the African Universities Week calendar, including high-profile panel discussions, live TV studio discussions, photo sessions, African cultural events, science, technology and innovation markets, and many, many more. Registration is free and attendance is open to people from all walks of life. Call us on +233 54 772 8975. Email us on info@aau.org. This program is brought to you kind courtesy the Association of African Universities in collaboration with Airport West Hotel Limited, Accra.
Welcome back to the African Student Voices, the show that brings you the mindset of the students of this continent on how to contribute to enhancing higher education on the face of the continent. Before we went on our break, we were talking with Dr. Nuamah on as to whether she thinks banning alcohol on African university campuses can resolve the issues, and then she really did indicate that, of course, it can be one, but there should be a more holistic approach to it, and then she proposes education. Roger, what do you think?
Doctor have said it all. I always say that the drug war is won through education.
Okay.
It is not about abandoning, it's not about not selling it, it's about letting the students know what they are dealing with. And when people know, and it tends to give them they arm them or equip them to take the right decisions. And when we went into taking P2, I didn't know what it was. I just realized that my uncle drank it. They use it everywhere. And I also decided that I would do. But when I went to rehab, I started reading about types of drugs, the stimulants, the depressant, the hallucinogens, and what it does to the body. I realized that, wow, so all this while I was destroying myself. So you just need knowledge. You need knowledge. So we, some of us are ready to partner schools, other institutions to go around and make sure we teach the students or give them what we have learned the hard way. And so it's education. Right? It's education, and universities can also come out with a bit of alcohol policies. Some have alcohol handbooks. I read it. One of the universities in America have an alcohol handbook, so you get to know what you're going to be dealing with your freedom. You know, you're away from home and wanting to be accepted by your peers. You want to do things that, oh, Charlie, I'm also a student, a university student now. So they need to know that this thing would end up destroying your dreams. So you'll be careful with it. So we need to write. We need a lot of literature about drugs, all the drugs. We need the platforms. The university should create platforms for us, especially the orientation programs, so that we'll start with that one. Most of them are doing that. University of Professional Studies have done that. This is the second year. I was part of them. Wisconsin International College, a lot of other higher institutions are calling us to talk to their students. And anytime that you talk to students, they call. And I did a program with one of our radio presenters, Black Rasta. And the next day, when my phone number were given, the phone got jammed. The youth wanted to know more. I did a program in one of the senior high schools in Boliga, and they had to forcefully end the program. The students were asking questions. They wanted to know. Even those who people came out and confessed that they used drugs at the senior high level, and they didn't know, and now they are aware and wanted to know more. So I think education will do the work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
just to add a little bit to what Doctor said, I think the government also has a role to play.
Okay.
That is, if higher taxes are being imposed on these drugs and then these things, so that importing them would be a little bit difficult for the importer, I think that would also curb it. It wouldn't get to the stage of getting to the importer, talk less of even getting to the students.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that
it's something, a comprehensive drug control. We have the demand strategy and we have the supply reduction strategy. With the demand reduction strategy, you're talking about education. When you educate the people, they would reduce the demand for it. But with the supply reduction strategy, you're talking of the taxes slapped on some of them. There are various ways of doing that, but time will not permit us to go deep into the strategies to fight drugs in this country. Yes.
Yeah, I think it has been an enlightening session with the three. But I just want to ask, of all of these things that we have discussed, what is the holistic way forward for us? For instance, the Continental Education Strategy for Africa, which was brought out by the African Union, clearly hinges its strength on the future of our students, African students. And this is also a derivative of the Agenda 2063, which wants to see Africa being prosperous in the next about 55 years to come. So if our universities are struggling with managing issues of drugs amongst students, it also would mean that the Continental Education Strategy would be threatened, and the Agenda 2063 would also be threatened. What are some of the strategies we can implement on African university campuses to curb the menace of the increasing rate of drug uses on our campuses? You?
Yes, I think what is very paramount here is that we, the students, I think we have to come up and then form these anti-drug clubs on campuses.
All right.
Well, I've taken a step to start it on campus. My school, that is the University of Professional Studies, Accra, which I'm very proud of. And very soon, by the grace of God, we wish to extend to other universities.
Of course, we'll be very happy to support you.
Exactly. All over the region, and then probably the country, and who knows, West Africa, and then we'll move from there to the African continent as well. And I urge all students to also take up that particular responsibility and then implement those ideas on campuses. And I think that would help curb the issue of substance abuse and drug abuse. Thank you.
Doc, what's happening with the mental hospital? Do you have initiatives for campuses, or what are you doing to help curb this menace, especially with the youth and then students on African university campuses?
Okay, so with students, for some campuses, for example, University of Ghana, Legon, I think maybe because of the proximity and also with the relationship we've had, and also with Konfanochi, with KNUST, we tend to
University of Science and Technology.
We tend to run some clinics in their, they have career guidance and counseling units.
Okay.
So there we have specialists or doctors from our end who go there on weekly basis. So our individuals who have such issues are then directed to, and if the care needs to be escalated to our center, then that is done as well. So at our hospital or our facility, where we have we run a substance use disorder clinic, so that's the special thing we run, and then we also have the rehabilitation center, and we have also the detoxification unit as well. Okay. So we start from the clinic, and if you need to go into recovery, that is, you need rehabilitation, then we move into the detoxification phase and then also the rehabilitation itself as well. Based on the severity of the substance use disorder, there are different options with regards to how the rehabilitation can be done. So these are basically what we're doing. But I think for students and on university campuses, it's very important that, yes, we form these clubs, but also we have avenues for persons who are using or who find themselves involved in this menace to be able to get help. Okay, so it's very important that we have these career guidance and counseling unit centers, or whatever we may want to call it. We should have these centers available where individuals can go in, mention that they have this challenge and would like to get help and be able to get the requisite help professionally. It's very, very important. And as much as we are trying to prevent people from getting involved, you just know that one or two may fall victim, and so there should be a way of handling it such that persons who are found culpable can get back to their studies, unlike him, because that is the truth. The reality of the matter is that most people who get trapped oftentimes end up having to drop out of school. And unlike like how he mentioned as well, sometimes may end up deferring the course quite a number of times. They may not be able to even complete it, but that doesn't help anyone. So we should be able to help people get well, get rehabilitated, and back into school so that they can become good citizens who will be of benefit to society and to their families as well.
Roger.
Yes, that is one of the main reason Load Ghana is founded. When I was in rehab and I started going through my recovery and reading so much, researching so much, I got to realize that we need to educate a lot of people, especially the senior high and the university students, because I was taking it ignorantly. So I just came out and I consulted a few people and founded Load Ghana, Life Out of Alcohol and Drugs, and decided that I'll go around and educate students and form students clubs. One of our areas that I wanted to do to form Load Ghana clubs in the universities, several schools that we meet them weekends or all the time to preach or to empower them with the right information. So formation of anti-drug clubs is the way I mean, that we can solve this problem, but also get the right people to talk to them. People don't want to talk to holy and thou people, especially addicts. Addicts are such a way that when they are talking to you, you know that you don't have HP, that you have never used drugs, they don't want to talk to you. Okay. But any time that you talk about yourself, they understand that this is one of us, and they easily open. People sometimes ask me, how come my son open up so easily to you? Especially some one elderly person said, do I think I don't have juju? Because he was struggling with his son. The guy sees his African magic. The guy sees, he went and smoked, he came and sees his motorbike. So he wanted to sell the motor, add money and buy a motor for a girlfriend. So when I was invited, I got to the house and everything just went right. He nailed it down, apologized to the dad, we were able to solve the problem. He's going back to school. So the dad was saying that, no, there's something. But when I started telling him about myself, my story, he opened up and I said, wow, this is the person I needed to talk to. And so we need people who have come back to join the fight, to openly go to schools, talk to students, and let them know that it's not a good thing that they are doing. There's a proverb that if you don't know the way ahead of you, ask those coming back. And some of us are ready to tell you the truth, what you are going to encounter there. And you need not try to go the way we went. So formation of clubs are good. We need to intensify the education aspect of it, bring in the experts. We do our part and the experts do our part. It's a kind of a partnership sort of. And addictions attacks or destroy the person physically, spiritually, and emotionally. And you need all sort of fighters on board. So we're able to win this war. It's not about just talking about it and not walking the talk. The problem is always implementing. Like we're talking about the 18 plus. When you take any alcoholic beverages in this country, you have 18 plus. It means legally you must be 18 plus to take alcohol. And who enforces that? If you talk to the Food and Drug Board, they tell you that they are not well resourced and they can't go around, make sure that this law is enforced. Any person in this country, regardless of the age, can get to buy alcohol at any place. Sometimes they don't even see the figure in front of the counter, yet the person will be given. So we need to enforce some of these laws. We need to let people know what it means by 18 plus. And even regulating the time of advertisement, they kind of reduce that can play them, Tuesdays they can play them. And I think the Food and Drug Board have done well. That it's after 8 o'clock that they air those advertisements. So we need to do more. It's a serious fight. But sometimes we talk about it and people that are supposed to tell us the truth, excuse me to say, that are part of the people that take alcohol and they don't feel comfortable talking about it. Even headmasters, when you talk about it, the person himself is not comfortable. They are part of the people that drink alcohol around the school and they don't even want you to talk about it. It's a serious problem. But what they should have at the back of their mind is that we are protecting the youth. We need to empower them. We need to protect them. We need to let them be productive, and we need to let them actualize their visions. And when we don't let them understand or let them stay away from some of these things, they will never get to actualize their dreams.
You have been working on this for a while, and you've made inroads on a number of campuses. What have been the challenges with your work trying to help young people get out of alcohol and drugs? For you have mentioned that you had a program at Wisconsin University College, University of Professional Studies.
We've been to the Bolgatanga Polytechnic. Last week I was with the St. John Bosco College of Education.
All right.
I've been to almost all the nursing training colleges in the Upper East region.
So in all of these, our viewers who are students are the key audience that we're talking to now. We're trying to reform them so that they can also help reform Africa's higher education. What are some of the challenges you faced in your work that is life out of alcohol and drugs?
Yes.
And how did you persevere to get to the stage you've got into? That perhaps would be a motivation for others getting into this rescue industry.
Yes. The main problem is lack of funding.
Okay.
There's no support when it comes to finance in the area of alcohol and drugs. Lorgan have been in existence in 2014 and got incorporated 2015. We have never gotten any funding from any source. We get from individuals who see your activities, and sometimes the schools invite you and don't even have money for you to travel from wherever you are to talk to the students.
Like we have done, we have also brought you on stage.
Yes, you said you don't have resources. Yes, as at yesterday 9 a.m. my wife was asking me how you get into Accra. I said, no, I'm going to Accra, but I don't have a ticket. And then finally I got to Accra this morning. Because it's a call and a passion, sometimes we borrow to even get to talk to students, even sleep. I've slept a lot of places that I cannot mention just to talk to students. So funding is the serious challenge that we don't have, and that has to also even do with transportation. You don't have your own means getting around. Even within the Bulgar, the students, they invite you, communities, churches, and you can't get there with your team. And we need a lot of support when it comes to funding. And we are ready to work with the schools anytime, any day that we are given a platform to talk to the students. Students, bodies like the SRC and others can also give us the platform to talk to them. They have money. They can give you transportation, give you accommodation to talk to. We start from somewhere small and get to big. We're not asking for much, something that big that they can pay. Just to transport you, get you a place to sleep, and you talk to them, go back. You can even have time to cancel after the whatever talk that you have with the general students. You can have time to listen to them. So the biggest challenge is funding, to be able to build a lot of structures. And there's a high demand for rehabilitation. People don't want to go to the traditional psychiatric hospitals, and they are the only ones that currently, we have few private ones that are doing rehabilitation in this country. By any time you mention Pantang, Ankafo, people say, wow, I'm not going to a mental hospital. Okay. And so we need to also look at the rehabilitation part of this, what we're talking about, and there's a high demand for it. We do people watching or investors who want to also help us build ultra-modern rehab centers can call, so that we see how we help society with it. People, when you have them rehabilitated, they become productive people in society. It's just not that we need to give them the second chance.
Of course, we have evidence in you.
We need, and you get to be careful with life. Some of us have gone far, and there were days that my father said he would just think that I will not be across the week. Myself, we will be hallucinating, we'll be seeing things that I'm not supposed to see. You cannot even eat for a week, and when you are helped back, you get to take life very serious. And everything in life, I get to discover that is about discovering your purpose on earth, who you are, and we need to add it to the education to let the students understand very early that there's something God wanted done on earth. That's why they were created. Some don't even know why they are here on earth. So anything goes. I got to rehab and I started talking to Dr. Seidu, and he told me how intelligent I was, how I needed to work and advance the kingdom of God, how I needed to. He was telling me things that nobody ever told me about, that I was special. So you need to empower the youth that they are born for a purpose, and they would stay focused.
Okay.
Look,
in this entire drive, a formation of anti-drug clubs on African campuses would become a reality. Can we do it without your profession? Don't we need technical support? Are you willing? Is it the case that mental hospitals are giving support to groups that are willing to empower others to get out of this situation?
Okay. So first and foremost, we are Pantang Hospital falls under Mental Health Authority. Okay, so I can speak quite confidently that Mental Health Authority is very, very passionate about partnering with individuals and groups to help individuals get out of any form of disorder, substance use disorders being part of it. I think it's a well-known fact that even in globally, but also in our setting, mental health does not receive as much funding as is needed, actually. And so it makes it difficult to go the full mile with it. But then at least with what the hospital does, and also in line with what we call our community psychiatry nurses, they tend to often go around schools in the various localities and also institutions to also try and talk to persons a bit more. Partnering with these clubs would be an excellent thing, and we are happy to do it. But then with our human resources, it would have to be well discussed so that we see the modalities of implementation so that it's actually realistic and feasible and actually going to get results. Because mind you, in as much as you're going to do it, if it is not properly done, it could backfire. It could end up causing a lot more harm. There has to be a way by which you talk to persons who are using the substances, ensuring confidentiality, and then helping such that the best outcome is made. So partnership shouldn't be an issue at all. I'm sure we are always happy to partner and then help make sure that the steps that are taken are in the right direction. So I can speak for Pantang Mental Health Authority. Once these discussions are held, I'm sure we can come to some good conclusion as to modalities that can be taken to help institutions get students to get the help that is needed.
Okay. So we are about running up, and then I think that I want to take the final words from each of us. Roger first.
Yeah, thank you. We are based in the Bolega, the Upper East region. I can give out our numbers, 050
plus 233 before the 05
plus 233
50
509125 plus 233 509125 plus 233 242275 plus 233 242275 They can also follow us on Facebook, Load Ghana. Most of our activities we post them on Facebook.
Load is LOAD.
Yes, Ghana. When do you want to know much about us, you can just Google about Load Ghana or Abaah, Atambire and Load Ghana. You get to see what we do. We're based in Bolga. Don't hesitate to invite us to your program. Have a church, school, or whatever program that you want us to be part of it. You also want us to counsel somebody, you give us a call. Together we'll win this war.
Doc?
Okay. So to contact us, for us you can write to or contact Pantang Addiction Services. Once you communicate that, it will get to us, and then we'll be able to get back to you to give the necessary help. And also Pantang Hospital, anything directed to the hospital director, Pantang Hospital, also get the necessary attention. The Mental Health Authority, Ghana, is also a means of, you can look us up online anywhere on our website. You'll get all the information.
Ibrahimah.
Yes, you can reach me on Seidu Ibrahimah on Facebook, and also Seidu Ibrahimah on Twitter, and my WhatsApp number is +233 2081193888.
Viewers, it has been an hour and more on how to form anti-drug clubs on African university campuses to be able to support the drive of the African Union on the issue of the continental education strategy for Africa. I have been your host, Fred Awaah. Remember, a drug-free environment is needed to ensure higher education quality on the face of our continent. Thank you.